still singing for a little bit, and people still cheering as the shots are coming. It took them a little bit to react, and then, you know, obviously then it was complete and utter chaos. You mentioned those two windows. I'm going to give you a live look at them right here behind me from the Mandalay Bay. We were waiting for the sun to come up so we could get a look, because at night you could not tell. The hotels in this area had dimmed their lights, turned off some of their lights at some points during the night. So we had to wait for that first sun up to be able to see those two windows, and you can see where he knocked them out and used them from two different vantage points. Now, where I'm standing, we've moved. We were a little bit closer earlier this morning, and actually very early this morning, and you can see where that would give him two different vantage points, completely unobstructed on the people who are in the below. As we come down from that location, you'll be able to see. We had to wait for that first sun up to be able to see those two windows, and you can see where he knocked them out and used them from two different vantage points. Now, where I'm standing, we've moved. You're a little bit closer earlier this morning. Protection. We know they ran off that stage. Some people dove under the stage. Some people went into the buses. People basically took cover in any way they could. And then right now, the area that you're looking at still has a number of dead bodies inside. The investigation continues there. This area will go on for at least 12 hours probably before they'll be able to start removing some of the bodies that are here. We know people died here. We know people died down the street from here. We know people died at hospitals. In fact, one hospital, I think the woman you just heard from, they treated 140 patients, and 12 died there at that one hospital. So that's what's going on, Harrison. To give you also an idea of the chaos, we're what, a block away maybe? I mean, straight across is right there. We're not that far across the parking lot from where the shooting took place. Where I'm standing, they knocked through a fence here. They broke open a window. They knocked down another fence over here. People doing whatever they can, scattering as far as they could to escape the gunfire. And as I mentioned, down at the end of the street where I'm standing were three bodies. People put them on tables, and we're carrying them away from the crime scene, away from the gunfire, hoping to get them to some sort of emergency vehicle or somebody's car, and they didn't make it. So they were left there on those tables, and they covered them up with some shirts and sheets until authorities could come and then claim those bodies. That's what it was like here, Harris. And people are still coming to grips with it, and for some, they'll never truly come to grips with what took place here.
Well, and a lot of people, I mean, you had north of 22,000 people at that concert, and you had different venues. I know we had platinum artist Kaya Jones on the last hour of Outnumbered with us. She told me that she was on that stage, then went to the next venue. This is a music festival, so there are lots of things going on, not just at that hotel. So she estimated some 30,000 people might have been out last night milling about. So you're going to continue to hear those witness stories. This crime scene is huge, Adam. And you're describing it. Thank you for showing us the windows. Here's my question for you. You know, there were people in the hotel. One of Kaya's friends was on the 32nd floor, but you couldn't hear even him pounding out those windows because you had concert music going on and you had so many people.
And it's the Las Vegas Strip. You have the hotel music going on. You have the gaming. You have the people outside. You have the energy and the sound of the Strip. If you come to Las Vegas, you know that sound. It goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So you have all that with the lights. And that's why people weren't maybe initially, one of the, again, three main reasons the FBI tells me that they did not respond immediately. And one of them is because you're in a situation where that would not be out of the ordinary. You did mention that Kaya, I know she is a friend, we have a mutual friend that had told me about her before she spoke to you guys as well. And we also know, I talked to Cowboy Troy, he's part of Big and Rich, and all those guys were together. They were on stage. In fact, he just tweeted me, we do direct messaging. They were on stage and decided to leave a little bit early and got into a tour bus and went down the street to John Rich's bar. And so people on stage got hit. They would have theoretically been on stage if they had stayed a little bit longer. So there were a lot of people that actually had already kind of snuck out because Jason Aldean was the final act. So there weren't as many people maybe backstage and on the side of the stage. A couple of tour buses had left, but there were still 22,000 fans inside. So it gives you an idea of the different stories coming out, the different stories of survival. Another friend of mine, radio host, national radio host, says that his buddy was shot. Guy Fieri, the chef, his restaurant here, his general manager's brother was shot. I mean, there's people that that we know that are calling and talking to me and telling me or texting me the information that they've heard, and then of course the people we've met. Like, the one that still gets me is the kid who came out, blood all over his body, and he says, "This is not my blood." And he had no shirt on, and he had no jacket. He said he came with a jacket and he came with a shirt, and he used those to cover dead bodies. I mean,
he said
that's what people are dealing with this morning.
I
and then
watched you live this morning.
Lost,
And he told you that he wanted to cover the eyes of the people who had passed away to give them dignity in death.
I mean, think about that.
It's incredible.
Think about that.
Well,
you come to a country concert and you leave covering people's eyes that died.
And at that age to have seen so much, because he was describing it to you almost in a dazed fashion, he'll be processing what he saw and what he did, those great acts of courage himself, helping to save. I think he told you 7 people. You know, one of the things about the story that we would want to share with our viewers is that it literally has changed every time they give a news conference, and they do that every couple of hours. So we are now within range of another one coming up. Adam, we will come back to you as the news warrants. Thank you.
All right.
Well, the FBI says they do not see any connection with this attack and terrorism or the Islamic State savages. And we're told there is no information right now to indicate any specific credible threat to any other public venues in the nation. Meanwhile, the FBI is opening up its 800 FBI line for tips, videos, and evidence. And I hope we pop that up on the screen, because it's simply 800 call FBI. Just dial those letters. They want to see from every vantage point, not just the professional cameras, but everybody. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live in Washington. One more thing, Catherine, before I go to you, because again, no credible threats anywhere else in the nation, but I was watching right before we went to air on Outnumbered that the commissioner of New York, New York City, said, look, we have several areas that are strategic that we're watching too, just out of precaution. Now your report.
Well, we may see more of that throughout the country, Harris, based on our reporting here at Fox News. We confirmed this morning that the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the FBI Director Christopher Wray, Acting Homeland Security Secretary Elaine Duke are fully engaged and were briefed here in Washington on the attack. Acting Secretary Duke said there is nothing indicating a specific credible threat involving other public venues. However, we are told that you may see increased security in and around the country at public events out of an abundance of caution, and those decisions will be made on a case-by-case basis by state and local officials. Meantime, FBI is bringing its full investigative and forensic resources to bear on the Las Vegas shooting, with the opening, as you mentioned, of that 800 FBI line for tips, videos, and social media posts, any kind of evidence that can piece together the events and the individuals leading up to the shooting. The FBI has this extraordinary ability to process massive amounts of data and to do so extremely rapidly. And much of this work is done at their labs in Quantico, Virginia. The rapid forensic processing helps investigators recreate the scene. In this case, they can understand the direction of the fire from the hotel room by the suspect. And the latest information we just got at that news conference about an hour and a half ago is that Stephen Paddock was able to keep a low profile before the shooting.
This is an individual who was described as a lone wolf. I don't know how it could have been prevented if we didn't have any prior knowledge to this individual. It wasn't evident that he had weapons in his room. We have determined that there has been employees going to and fro from his room, and nothing nefarious was noticed.
Meantime, a U.S. government official tells Fox News that the FBI will do a full forensic scrub of the suspect's electronics to determine who he was in contact with before the attack, as well as the degree of premeditation and whether there were any online influences. And as you mentioned just a short time ago, Harris, in response to a question about the ISIS claim last hour, the FBI agent on the scene said so far they've seen no connection to an international terrorist group.
Real quickly, Catherine, before I let you go, there was some mention at the last news conference by authorities there in Las Vegas that the FBI and the ATF, of course, they would be working together to figure out what exactly was in that room in terms of the weaponry and the ammunition, but they were looking to see if there were any things that had been purchased illegally. So far, though, we see no evidence of that, correct?
Based on a very brief contact I had with the ATF here in Washington this morning, they had no evidence at this point that anything had been purchased illegally. But this, this is a process. It's not something they can really just snap their fingers and know where all of those weapons came from. You've got almost a dozen weapons, and they've also got to work out the clips that were involved as well, whether all of that was legally purchased. Harris.
All right. Catherine Herridge reporting live for us now. And Catherine, we'll come back to you as you learn more as well, because again, every time they give a news conference, obviously that's the whole point, is to update us. But, I mean, when you have numbers that start out with 200 injured and in just a couple of times hear from authorities, by the time you hear from them the next time, and then the next time you have 550 plus, those are the types of details that really speak to just how much the story is still changing and how much of it still has to be processed. Right now, we want to get to our next guest, and so we're going to give this person a chance to get on the line with us. But I will say this, in terms of the two vantage points that you see on the left side of your screen, what we've learned is that this person, this suspect, used this hammer-like device. And what you might be interested in knowing is what type of impact that would have inside that room. And so you heard Adam Housley talking about how much ambient noise would have to be as cover for that kind of hammering, as cover, even before the shooting began. This venue was specific in that availability to the shooter. He had a lot of cover of noise, which is a frightening thought to begin with, but we know from eyewitnesses who were then describing having been on the 32nd floor that even close in, you might not have heard anything because all that was going on and just the natural ambience along the Las Vegas Strip, in addition to the concert, the Country Music Festival. One of the people in that crowd was James Patrick Freeman. He says he was about 120 to 200 feet from the stage, not all that far away. He is a teacher at a Las Vegas middle school, and he joins us by phone now. You're with us?
Yeah, hey.
So you're in the crowd. What did you hear first? And we've heard people thought it was fireworks. What did you hear and see?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we were about dead smack in the middle of the crowd. And it just sounded like fireworks that, you know, it didn't visually go off, especially because it was overhead. And it was just a quick burst, like a 10 to 15, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And Jason Aldean didn't stop playing. It was only till, I guess, maybe like he reloaded or it was a second burst at that point. That's when it really sunk in that this is not part of the show.
Yeah. You know, James, I mentioned that you're a middle school teacher and you probably have an eye for spotting young people in a crowd. There were some young people in that crowd last night. Was there any kind of direction as the first responders were coming onto the scene that helped in the way of communicating to some, because it's hard to hear to begin with, and then you've got people looking toward the stage. What kind of direction did you get from first responders?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great overall job by everyone involved. There were plenty of, it seemed like former military in the crowd that really stepped up to and helped direct people. There wasn't much trampling. Granted, there was a lot of chaos, but it did seem a lot more people reaching out to help anyone who needed any type of direction. We ended up jumping behind one of those like beer kiosk things and just tried to bunker down for a couple minutes till it cleared up, and then basically made a run east for it.
You know, with all of the noise, the music finally stopped playing, you said. You think after the second round of gunshots that you heard. You know, a lot of times it seems like this, and we saw this with Manchester, England, with the Ariana Grande concert, with some of the witnesses describing that you kind of see a lull in the audience and then the run. You're saying that having that military presence, some of those happened in the whole trying to get away from this thing. Describe for me, if you can, what it's been like for your city to react to this from a medical standpoint that you know of. I mean, do you have a lot of hospitals near there?
I mean, from what I've read, it seems like we don't have as many like ICUs to handle the numbers of victims. So I saw that they turned Thomas and Mack into almost like a triage center where they're helping people out, which is great to see. And it seems like everyone's kind of pulling together to make it work. But yeah, it doesn't seem like there's enough here right now.
Yeah, they're asking for blood. We've been giving that information out even nationally. James Patrick Freeman is a middle school teacher who was caught in that concert melee as the shots rang out, and it turned into a massacre last night along the Vegas Strip. James, thank you. I'm glad that you're safe. President Trump spoke first earlier today, and then as he was meeting with the Prime Minister of Thailand just a few minutes ago, giving more context to his own feelings and things that are coming down the pike with regard to what's happening as a reaction at the White House level to all of this. We know that flags are flying half-staff, as ordered by President Trump earlier today. We now know that first he'll go to Puerto Rico tomorrow, as promised, as already planned on his schedule, and then he will go to what he described as a very sad place right now, and sad for it in his heart, he said, and that is Las Las Vegas. He personally thanked the first responders from the West Wing today, but he says he wants to be able to do that on the ground. So we, of course, are going to cover the story moment by moment, but the president's words sometimes cause others to react as well. Stay close.
Did you know that silver is considered one of the world's most useful commodities, second only to oil? You could invest in an oil field, or you can buy silver, the world's miracle metal. With endless uses in green energy, electronics, and medicine, discover why the experts say silver is the new oil.
Silver is actually my favorite investment, particularly at this price.
I think silver's going to $200 an ounce. I love silver.
Call Lear Capital at 1-800-262-1881 to get this special report, Vanishing Silver, and Experts DVD. Plus, first-time callers also get this 1-gram silver bar free. Discover why Rich Dad Poor Dad's best-selling author Robert Kiyosaki loves silver, and why these experts see silver as a win-win investment. Learn how to protect and grow hard-earned savings. Remember, first-time callers get this 1-gram silver bar free. This offer ends soon. Call 1-800-262-1881. 1-800-262-1881.
Hi, I'm Johnny Bench. After a Hall of Fame career, it's no wonder why I use Blue Emu Arthritis Cream. Blue Emu's non-greasy, deep penetrating formula gets down deep into those joints for big-time pain relief. Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink.
Life happens everywhere, like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
Tonight we shake hands with pots and pans and take things step by step. Tonight we cook, delivering delicious ingredients you'll love to eat, simple recipes you'll live to cook. HelloFresh, get cooking. Save $30 with code TV30.
You always pay your insurance on time. Tap one little bumper and up go your rates. What good is having insurance if you get punished for using it? Newsflash, nobody's perfect.
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise your rates due to your first accident. Switch and you could save $782 on home and auto insurance. Call 1-888-709-2166 for a free quote today. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Managing blood sugar is a series of smart choices. And when you replace one meal or snack a day with Glucerna, made with Carb Steady to help minimize blood sugar
stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Managing blood sugar is a series of smart choices. And when you replace one spikes, you can really feel it. Now with 30% less carbs and sugars. Glucerna.
Las Vegas Massacre. As the investigation continues into the deadly shooting, get breaking details and up-to-the-minute reports on Fox News Channel.
Mike and I went on our honeymoon to Maui, and it was our first big trip together. It was amazing. We were like, let's move here. So we bought a timeshare there, and we went all the time for the next 2 years straight. In 2015, we were expecting our firstborn child, and we were really excited about it. It became a lot of work just to get out of the house, let alone to Maui.
I mean, I tried everything to get out of our timeshare, but I just couldn't make any progress. And then finally, one of your friends actually told us about Timeshare Exit Team, and they were great.
They were amazing. So now we can just relax at home as a family or go on other vacations and not have to worry about money spent on a timeshare.
Time changes everything. If your timeshare no longer fits your life, call the team that can talk to you about options for your timeshare. Call Timeshare Exit Team today or go to timeshareexitteam.com.
News alert. The president spoke about last night's massacre in Las Vegas earlier today. I was talking about it a little bit before the break. Here's more. Condemning the violence and calling it an act of pure evil. The president is also making arrangements to go to Las Vegas this week on Wednesday. Kevin Corke is live from outside the White House. And Kevin, we already knew that Puerto Rico was something that he was dealing with. This president now has crises on many fronts, and he's going to be hitting a couple of them this week.
Yeah, you're right on the money. We knew he'd be making that trip. Now he will leave Puerto Rico and go to Las Vegas. And the unfortunate circumstance that we have here today, Harris. I've been fascinated by the coverage. We've all been talking about this and watching this since the wee hours of the morning. The president obviously has been as well. In addition to ordering that flags be flown at half-staff, something that you pointed out earlier, the president is obviously asking all Americans to come together. Now, that gesture, the lowering of the flags, of course, in honor of the fallen, the more than 50 victims already of this senseless act of violence, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the overwhelming outpouring of love and support for the brokenhearted in our country. First Lady Melania Trump taking to Twitter. Let me share what she said. My heart and prayers goes out to victims, families, and loved ones. Hashtag pray for Las Vegas. Vice President Mike Pence, a series of tweets about this. Let me share this. To victims, families, and loved ones affected by this senseless violence in Las Vegas, Karen and I are praying for you and offering our love. He goes on to say the hearts and prayers of the American people are with you. You have our condolences and sympathies. And this, I love this, to the courageous first responders, thank you for your acts of bravery. Of course, the president asking the nation to pull together and comfort those in need. And he was very clear in his description of the violence that's rocked this nation.
It was an act of pure evil. Hundreds of our fellow citizens are now mourning the sudden loss of a loved one, a parent, a child, a brother or sister. We cannot fathom their pain. We cannot imagine their loss. To the families of the victims, we are praying for you, and we are here for you.
Many people echoing those sentiments, including former President Barack Obama, who tweeted, Michelle and I are praying for the victims in Las Vegas. Our thoughts are with their families and everyone enduring another senseless tragedy. Even support from international corners, including Canada. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, tweeting this, words fail this morning. The friendship and support of Canadians is with the victims in Las Vegas and the people of the U.S. And British Prime Minister Theresa May tweeting this, the UK's thoughts are with the victims and the emergency services responding to the appalling attack in Las Vegas. Nearly universal support for our country, Harris, at obviously one of the darkest moments in our history.
Yeah, you know, Kevin, it's interesting. I said right before the commercial break that sometimes when the president speaks, it can cause others to react in a certain way. We certainly saw this after Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma. I mean, we've had so many hurricanes now, Maria. We've seen that how he can not only just go, and we know that the presidential presence makes a big difference, but his words on a day like today can really kind of, if you will, influence the reaction that other people have in a very positive way. You know, I'm curious, has his schedule changed at all because of this outside of the visit, would be my first question. Yeah. And secondly, as you saw him with the Prime Minister of Thailand today, he started off with those tragedies and those crises points for this country, as well he should, as leader of our country. But it does change sometimes the tone and the texture for those people who are visiting from outside the country.
No question, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because we're talking about a president like him or dislike him who does love this country. Patriotism, a very important part of his personal fabric, and so the opportunity to talk about what has transpired was obviously very important. You could see it in the way he was having the conversation here today. Now, you mentioned the schedule. Yes, on Wednesday, instead of going to the Virgin Islands, which may have been the hope at one point, the president will likely now welcome the leader of Virgin Islands to come to Puerto Rico. And then go from Puerto Rico, as we talked about, over to Las Vegas. And it's important not just to thank first responders and to console those impacted, Harris. It's also very important to get on the ground and assess where the federal government might be of use in this circumstance, meeting with the governor and with the mayor, obviously, of Las Vegas. Keep in mind there's tactical support, there's technical support, and obviously the many law enforcement agencies that can partner with the local agencies to look at not just what has happened here, but clearly what happens moving forward as we continue to try to understand what has taken place in Las Vegas. Let me share just a bit more of what the president had to say earlier today, and again expressing his thoughts about what is clearly a very difficult day for so many.
Our bonds cannot be broken by violence, and though we feel such great anger at the senseless murder of our fellow citizens, it is our love that defines us today and always will, forever.
You truly hope that in a moment like this, we can move beyond politics. Unfortunately, almost immediately. You did see some tweets, some from Democrats, some from other critics of the president who felt like now's the time to talk about silencers or the NRA or the need for gun control. That's a debate that is obviously well-worn and will continue to be out there. But in these crucial hours when there are so many people who are still devastated by this tragedy, a great many of them still gravely ill, it seems a bit early. So we'll see what is said at the press briefing coming your way at 2 p.m. And, of course, the national moment of silence being observed over the South Lawn, that at about 2:45 or so. Of course, I'll have that for you here. But for now, Harris, back to you.
You talk about that political toggle, if you will, to gun control and other issues. I mean,
Yeah.
it always makes me think of what my grandmother used to say. If you want to control something, control your mouth and yourself right now and stay on topic of where everybody is. I quote her a lot. Kevin, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have new information on the shooter and the weapons that he used. This has been a huge question. People wanting to know, how do you get into a hotel with cameras everywhere with sizable weaponry? Would you have done it maybe across days? We're learning that there are cameras everywhere, but he also had been there since September 28th. William LaJeunesse is live in our West Coast newsroom. So, William, they're starting to address the answers to some of these questions, although we're very early in the investigation.
Right, but I was just told by a law enforcement official that Paddock owned more than 30 weapons, and police found between 11 and 15 inside that hotel room, several high-caliber AR-15s that were converted to full automatic, allowing him, of course, to fire 300 to 500 rounds, as police are saying. Now, the outstanding question, what motivated Stephen Paddock, 64-year-old, white male, retired accountant, living in a single-family home in a retirement community about 1 hour from Las Vegas near the Arizona border. Now, police say his home was nothing out of the ordinary.
We haven't had any run-ins with him. We haven't had any contact with him in the past, so that makes it kind of hard for us to know how long he's lived here. It's a new neighborhood. These homes are, in the area he is, aren't more than a year old, most of them. So we're looking about that time period maybe. But as far as how long he's lived here, that's something that we're looking into. It just makes it unique because we haven't dealt with him in the past, which is kind of unusual.
Records show Paddock moved to Mesquite actually in 2016 from Reno, and before that, Texas and Melbourne, Florida. Police say Paddock had no arrest, not even a traffic stop in Mesquite. Records show he had no criminal record in Florida or Nevada. He did appear to have sued Cosmopolitan Casino in a slip and fall accident, but according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, that suit filed in 2012 was settled 2 years later through arbitration. Now, according to the Washington Post, Paddock was a licensed pilot who owned 2 airplanes and hunting licenses in Alaska and Texas. Paddock had no health, money, or personal problems, according to his brother. He did own some handguns, according to the brother, but allegedly kept them in a safe. After moving to Nevada, Paddock called himself a professional gambler who played slot machines and video poker on the Strip.
He's a guy. He's just a guy who lived in Las Vegas and played at the casinos, went on cruises, did stuff. There's nothing. That's what's bizarre.
Now, police say that Paddock was a lone wolf type, but they'll, of course, be going through a lot of records, and we'll send this back to you to determine exactly what his motivation actually was.
We have some breaking news, William. Thank you very much. We want to go live now to the University Medical Center to get an update, at least on some of the victims. Let's watch.
We don't have to walk beyond our 4 walls of the trauma center to get to the blood bank or MRI or CAT scan or to the ORs.
When you hear that number, 58 people dead in total because of this case so far, what goes through your mind?
I think the same thing that goes through all of our minds, right? It's devastating. This happened in our own backyard. You always think it will happen somewhere else, and it happened just down the road.
In this case, you had people who brought in patients, not ambulances. You had one case where you had somebody who put people in their pickup truck to bring them over here. What is your sense of that kind of a situation?
We even had people bringing in people who they didn't know, who didn't need medical attention. One lady I stopped and talked to said I wasn't even hurt, but that car was going away from the scene, and she arrived here at the trauma center. So people were just trying to get out of the scene. So we got people who weren't even hurt at all.
So what's your message now?
Our message now is we are definitely trying to take care of our friends and family members of the patients. We know our patients are getting great care. They're in wonderful hands. We want to make sure that our families and friends of the patients are also taken care of.
Talk to us about level 1 and what that means for patients coming in here.
So it means that we are totally self-contained and we can take care of any life-threatening injury imaginable. Anything you can think of can be taken care of at the bedside. We always have trauma surgeons, fellowship-trained residents as well, taking care of our
All right, we are watching that live, obviously, at the University Medical Center, and we lost technology. We lost our shot there. If we have a chance to go back and it's still happening, we will. But for now, the headline and all of that I caught was what they're doing to help the injured, the wounded, but also maybe a ray of good news and all of that. Some people had gotten into those medical transports, and they may be part of that head count as people are leaving, as far as we know, at least from what this representative from UMC was saying. They were just getting to the hospital so that they could have a way out of that shooting scene. That would be a blessing, and maybe we would see a number go down in terms of the head count of the injured, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just watching it as you are, as the facts play out in front of us. For more, let's bring in Pat Brosnan, former NYPD detective and CEO of his own risk consulting firm. So, Pat, it's always good to have you along for these things, because we've had a lot happen in the city, and I know you've been there. You've got the experience of dealing with incredibly large crime scenes, which this is. You had in excess of 22,000 people for a concert venue. They all went somewhere. They didn't all go to the hospital. We lost some lives there. There are still bodies that are near the stage, as Adam Housley had reported. So you have a recovery that's going on along with the crime scene. Your thoughts?
Well, it's really a couple of things are happening, Heather and Harris. The fact is that you have an ongoing investigation. They're trying to ascertain the why, right? But the why is really not that important, but it's still going to go on anyhow. And the how, right, which we all know that there's not bag policies and magnetometers and so forth at these hotels. But in the meantime, the overarching is the concern for the victims. They got to get them out. They got to stabilize the crime scene and remove. So it's really a recovery effort. But, you know, you hear, and to your grandmother's point, I concur. It's not about gun control. It's not about more metal detectors. It's not about more proactive mitigation policies like bag checks. It's about neutralizing these guys. It's about mitigating and managing and getting rid of reoccurrence, minimizing a reoccurrence.
Yeah,
what do you do the next time?
So what are we looking at? Because you know that these hotels are going to have to make some changes now. You had a guy, Pat, who was in a hotel, and we don't have all the details yet, but we do know what he was packing and how long he was there. And you had employees, now we know, confirmed from the city officials, who were going in and out of his hospital, or his hotel room rather, and they didn't really see anything out of the ordinary. So this is a guy who can hide, who can hide his stuff, who can hide a lot of his stuff, who can hammer out. I mean, look at those plate glass windows.
Absolutely.
The power to get through that, and he knew enough, we would imagine, to do it at a certain time so you couldn't hear it going on.
Precisely. He's 64.
So how do you catch somebody like that?
Well, it's not preventable.
You can't prevent it.
I don't want to say it because it kills me to empower the bad guys. This event was completely unpreventable. It could not be prevented.
Unless he'd been known to them, and authorities have said
and he wasn't known. He wasn't known. He was deceitful enough, purposely deceitful enough, to be able to ship in these items over a course of days, bring in 500 rounds. Think about the aggregate weight of 500 rounds of ammo. He brought it in piecemeal. He brought the weapons in piecemeal. He stayed low-key. He built his platforms. Not only that, he retrofitted 10 weapons, no small feat, into fully automatic. This was completely unpreventable. But we can learn from it, and that's what's important, Harris. We can learn how to minimize the probability of reoccurrence. And that is about partnering up with the off-duty guys. In the United States, we have 1 million sworn officers. I know that, and the fact is they're everywhere. Off-duty officers are everywhere. They're armed, they're trained, they're knowledgeable, they know how to move in a crowd, they know how to respond. There should be contractual alliance. This is what should happen on a national level. They're sworn police officers. They're sworn by the state. They're sworn to empower.
Would that have helped from a guy who was shooting from 32 stories
Not in
up?
this instance. I'm talking about the next one. This one was not preventable. This was completely unpreventable.
But I mean, while it was going on, you've got bullets raining down, and witnesses have said it did help to have some off-duty police officers and military in the crowd, just in terms of the order.
Absolutely, in terms of minimizing the loss to life.
But you're saying going forward, just in general, to send the signal, like marshals on an airplane.
Same concept, but extrapolated across 1 million officers. 1/3 are working 8-hour shifts. That means 66% are available to help. Empower them, make it contractual, make it policy. They have the training, they're weaponed, they want to do it. That's why they became officers. That's why they're sworn by the state and the federal constitutions. That collective force multiplier will help. It'll mitigate and manage through people, through processes, and through technology.
And you do this in New York? That's what happened
Absolutely.
After 9/11? Right.
Absolutely. You got to take the guy out. The point is to save more people. The faster he gets a bullet in his cerebellum, there's less people dying. And these kids don't deserve to die. They deserve to live. And that's really what it comes down to, neutralizing them. Don't let it happen. It'll happen again. It may not be preventable like this one, but let's make it happen. Let's use the resources we have. We have all these boots on the ground. You have all these eyes out there, right? Let's use them.
All right.
Why not?
Thank you very much
You're very
for
welcome.
your experience to the table today. We appreciate it. My next guest was at the concert, so more witness now. And I said this was going to happen. People are talking now. They're congregating there. He witnessed the horror unfolding as the gunfire was raining out. Brian Claypool, defense attorney, joins me now by phone. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
No problem there.
You know, I would say witnesses are sometimes impounded by the emotion. And I know as a defense attorney, we probably have a good chance now to hear a little bit more forensic look at what was going on. And I want to get that from you, from your vantage point, what you saw.
Yeah, so I was sitting in it's called the VIP section. It was deemed the Neon Lounge. And so if Jason Aldean is looking out into the crowd, it would be to his left. And if I'm looking at him, it's to my right, and it's close to the stage, and it goes back a bit. And I was sitting in that area, and it was about his fourth song, and I heard a couple cracks, and they felt very close to me. And by the way, where I was sitting was in the corner. It was closest to Las Vegas Boulevard and the Mandalay Bay. It was in this little corner area. So those first cracks sounded, like it was a fireworks or firecrackers, but I looked up and I didn't see anything. And then what was eerie was Jason Aldean hesitated during the song. He missed a few beats because he was worried. And then what really got me, I mean, the moment that really seared my mind, it'll be in my mind forever, is I then heard some more noises, and I looked at Jason Aldean, and he literally dropped his guitar and sprinted off the stage. At that moment, I jumped up and started running to the side to run up the stairs to get out of the VIP section. And then that's when the onslaught of I can't even, it felt like at least 30 seconds. It just would not stop. And I'm laying face down on this aluminum stairwell, and I'm pulling people down because they're still sitting there because they're kind of frozen in time, and they're not reacting. And it felt like forever. And I will tell you, I felt like I was lower, but my head wasn't protected. And as every sound, another bullet sound came out, I'm like, okay, is that one going to hit? Is that going to hit me? I mean, it was just terrifying.
Wow. The way that you describe how you crouched down, and I wondered about this, you were reaching up, pulling people down, because people do that in that moment, don't they, Brian? They freeze. You don't know which way to go.
Let me tell you how bad it was. And I'm not blaming anybody. By the way, fans at these country western festivals, they're the on the planet. They're there to celebrate life. Their souls are so clean. They just want to have fun. And moments before the shooting, it was surreal, Harris. I actually saw 2 Las Vegas police officers right in the general section, about 25 feet in front of me. They were chit-chatting with a couple women and a couple guys. And I said to myself, man, what a great gig they had for the last 3 days. The best people on the planet at these concerts, great musical act, nobody getting in trouble. I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. And then can you imagine what they went through also? Then about 15 or 20 minutes later, I mean, it's mind-boggling. And then to get back to your question, I was running through the front row, and there were 4 people still sitting, and I'm running for my life. So, and then real quick, I mean, after it stopped, he must have been reloading. And by the way, we didn't know where the shooter was. So we thought some shooters were going to jump over the 5-foot fence and come inside and kill us. But then I ran down these stairs real quick, and then there was a heroic guy near a door that channeled about 15 of us into this little room under the bleachers, like a production room. And that's a second thing that I will never forget. There were 5 or 6 young women in that little room, kneeling, crying in a corner. And I'm going to tell you, that was heartbreaking. I mean, I will never forget those women crying there because at that point I went from, man, I'm going to die like the Orlando shooting in this room. That's what I first thought. It was like, pick your poison. It's like, what do we do? Do I run straight or do I run into the room?
We're going to hold you over for the commercial break. We're right back.
Psoriatic arthritis tries to get in my way? Watch me.
I've tried lots of things for my joint pain. Now, watch me.
Think I'd give up showing these guys how it's done? Please.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are changing the way they fight it. They're moving forward with Cosentyx. It's a different kind of targeted biologic. It's proven to help people find less joint pain and clearer skin. Don't use if you are allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting Cosentyx, you should be checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of an infection, or if you have received a vaccine or plan to. If you have inflammatory bowel disease, tell your doctor if symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
With less joint pain, watch me.
For less joint pain and clearer skin, ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
It would be nice to stay in a cozy boutique hotel somewhere along the coast. Not exactly sure where yet. But annoyingly, on a lot of websites, you can only see results for an exact location you search for. Well, Trivago does it differently. On Trivago, you can simply use the map, explore the whole area, and as you move along, Trivago keeps showing you all the hotels that meet your search criteria. And that's one more way Trivago helps you find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
When you're looking for answers, it's good to have help, because the right information at the right time may make all the difference. At Humana, we know that's especially true when you're